Yes, so it's very lucky when a person's dad is the head of 3D printing where he works, and he had a conversation about it with him yesterday. Toda Abba. Look, here's the thing. 3D printing is a brave new world, and in order to avoid it being a dystopia, we need to be careful on how we act. Now, we're willing to concede right now, not all 3D printing is bad. Not all of it is dangerous. The problem is that today we do not have the tools to actually regulate this technology. We do not have even the language to deal with those technology. In 10 years' time, it will be a very different motion. But for now, we must ban it. What I'm going to talk to you today. A, I'm going to explain to you about all the dangerous things one could do using their 3D printers. B, I'm going to explain to you exactly why we cannot regulate it. 3, I'm going to explain how all the good things that you can get from 3D printing, you could get it via alternatives that are plausible, and you have no need to have it actually used by yourself as an owner. Please notice what we do not ban in this debate. We have no problem with having companies that set up a 3D printer, like say a smaller one, where people can come, use that printer. It is heavily regulated what kind of things they can do. Everything that they do is open to the government for checkups and regulations. If someone allows a person to use their 3D printer offline, that company would no longer be able to provide 3D printers. This is a huge, we believe, disincentive to do so. Also, we have no problem with what's known as dedicated printers, i.e. you have this chair printer where all it can print is chairs. Like sure, it like still has like a million variations of chairs. It's all the chairs a person could ever need, but it is not bounded. They cannot do whatever they want with it. This is still okay with us. What is the damages of 3D printing? Look, so obviously there are like very dangerous stuff that you could make. You could make guns, you could make firearms, you could make explosives. This we think is quite obvious. Also, you could just make dangerous things in the sense that they are not up to code, right? So you could, for example, make a microwave within your 3D printer that might just blow up because frankly no one has ever checked its codes and what you could do with that kind of object. It's also the fact that those 3D printers just use very dangerous materials. So for example, if you want to make something from metal, you need to use metallic powder just to make it because this is how those machines work. Metallic powders are highly toxic, and if they become airborne, they could in fact affect not just you, but surroundings around you and make it very dangerous for them. It's 250, it's fine, okay? Now, please notice what all of that entails, right? People could use those for very, very dangerous stuff. Now, please notice, people don't have to have 3D printers. If they want a chair, if they want a puppet, like those are things that usually you could buy. You could even customize in a lot of existing options online. If you couldn't, as we have brought alternatives in which you could use all of those quite successfully. What we do prevent is all those very dangerous materials. But here's the most important thing about here. The real danger is not anything they just said. The real danger is that when you have 3D printing, you cannot know if someone has printed a gun. You cannot know if someone has printed a microwave. Why? Because the way things are used in a 3D printer is that you have some kind of planning which is unbounded. That means that if you want a gun, you could get something that doesn't look anything at all like a gun, because you have a computer software program that is in fact charged of all the makeup of that gun. So you just tell that program, give me something that allows a missile to shoot at a certain speed, and that program plans it for you, and then you print it. You don't even know how that gun operates because that software has done it for you. And this is the real danger. So it's not just that you could make our kind, like things that already today are dangerous. You could make things that we cannot even come up with that are dangerous. We can't even imagine what types of machinery one could concoct up in those 3D machines. And that, we say, is what scares us the most. Because frankly, we don't know how a person might use those, and this, we say, is goddamn terrifying. Let's talk about why we cannot regulate it before I move on. Second.
Oh my God, people could use a computer to hack into shit. Will you ban them?
No, we think, first of all, this is important. The damages one could do with computers are A, completely known. B, it took us a while before we let everyone tap into the internet. Remind you, there was about a decade in which people could not tap into the internet just for that. And 3, because we do have a lot of methods to counteract those kinds of hacking today. We do not have those under status quo. As we said, in 10 years, maybe not now. Why can't we regulate it? A, as we said, they are just making things that we don't know what they are. That means that A, we cannot regulate for them. Like if someone prints a thing that you don't know what it is, you don't know if to bend it or not. But B, you just don't have the language. Like, what kind of law did he break if he made a thing that no one even knows what it is, right? Like, this is a true problem. Like, you literally don't have the legal language to actually regulate it. More than that, this is just true. You don't have a standard format today for blueprints. So you couldn't even tell by the blueprints what, even if it was like stupid enough to just try a regular gun, you don't know by the blueprints if it's actually a gun, since there is no standard format for using those kinds of 3D printers. More than that, there is no standard for signatures of 3D printers, so you can't even know which kind of 3D printer it came from. This is something that it took a lot of time to regulate in regular printers. We just don't have those in 3D printers anymore. And lastly, they can always just work offline, right? They can always just like download the blueprint over one device and move it on to this 3D printer that is completely off the grid. So your ability to regulate it is minimal. So, okay, alternatives, I already told you, but you could have dedicated stores, you could have dedicated printers, anything that they want to say, oh, but people want to like experiment and stuff, you could probably do it already. It just would be regulated and you couldn't do too much of crazy shit. But let's talk just one thing. They might say, oh, but what about development in the field of 3D printing as a whole? Two things to tell that. A, industrial use still exists. We could do the experiments there, develop our legal language there, develop all our regulations there, then move to the to customer use. And secondly, let other countries be the guinea pig. They could try it first. No reason for us to take the fall. For all those reasons, we beg you to propose.
The microphone's supposed to actually pick up my voice and does it. Those are two different questions, but worth asking. Okay, good job. Right now, the average person is not allowed to just buy a gun. Depending on which country we're in, they may have more or less restrictions on this fact. Someone who just wants to drive a car and doesn't want to send it through endless checkups, doesn't have the money to get a license, doesn't have the money to upkeep it and send it on its yearly check, cannot drive a car. And we think that if we cannot regulate these massively, potentially dangerous things, when they don't have enough benefit, and when we can give you reasonable alternatives that give you most, but not all of those benefits, that's the criteria under which we think we absolutely must ban this personal use. We don't think Tamar did a good enough job engaging with all of the stuff that Schulman put on the table to explain why that is the case, and we're going to do some rebuttal, we're going to do some more words, it's going to be great. Okay, so let's start with some rebuttal, because here's what Tamar tells us. So she says, look, why don't you just regulate the people who own these things, and then you've solved the problem. So here's the thing. First of all, we think that this is like clearly just forsaking their own moral burden in this debate to tell me that people should have the right to own the thing, right? But second of all, we think that like, let's understand what the kind of regulations you might have up, right? So either you regulate it to the same level that you literally regulate owning a gun in most countries that aren't the United States, and then there's massive amounts of checkups, you have to like get licenses, you have to go through tons of background checks, etc., in which case you're much, much closer to what we're already doing, right? But more than that, we think that even then, we're not willing to do it. One, because we think that far more people have access to this than we know. We don't actually know who does and doesn't own a weapon, because they can then print that weapon at home without our actually knowing that they've done so, right? And so we think that we're still in a place where we're not certain that these people have or don't have this weapon, and we can't regulate them. But more than that, because we tell you that they have the potential to create things that we don't even know exist yet, And that is something that we just can't regulate for at all. There might be things that we're unwilling to license under any extent, no matter how sane you are, right? Such as automatic machine guns that no matter what, you cannot buy in most countries that aren't the United States. And we think that we want to keep that on the thing, right? We don't know why, we cannot be sure that they cannot or will not develop the capability to do so. And therefore this regulation just doesn't work, aside from going against most of what they told us is so great about having people own personal stuff. Cool. Then they tell us, look, people aren't going to use these things because the people who use them are either like geeks or whatever who aren't going to try and hurt anyone, or people who are like terrorists, and this is way more effort. So let's break it down. No, it is not way more effort. It is ridiculously easy and ridiculously cheap, and many people already own personal 3D printers, right? And there are tons of blueprints out there on the dark net that allow you to print very many different kinds of guns and very many different kinds of weapons that we would not allow people to already own. It also, as Schulman tells you, is a program that allows you to literally put in what it is that a goal that you are trying to achieve, and prints you a machine that can give you access to that. And that is where the point of invention of things that we don't even know exist yet comes in, and that just gets no answer. So the notion that like terrorists find it easier to just go buy all the chemicals is wrong. And it's important. Why is it wrong? Because when you go and buy all of the chemicals to make an explosive, you leave a trail. It is very difficult. You cannot like buy all the explosives in one place that are enough to make a bomb, because it sends up a massive red flag that says they just bought a shit ton of C4. We don't think that's legal. Why are they buying a shit ton of C4? Or you have to go to tons of different stores to gather the explosives to make C4 or whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? That leaves a trail that allows us much more easily to find the kinds of people who are illegally doing these things. When you just buy a 3D printer and you buy some 3D printing stuff, I don't know what you make things out of, then, plastic, yeah? So then, like, that does not leave a trail, because there's tons of supposedly normal people, and we cannot effectively check up on all of them who are taking these actions. This is exactly why I want people to go to a dedicated store where we have dedicated blueprints that they can print things in, right? In which case, I have a trail of who has walked in and out of that store, and if suddenly a 3D printed gun turns out of the market, then I have 3 hotspots where they might have been, and I check back the CCTV cameras, and I figure out who did it, and I have much more access to understanding where they came from, as well as much more regulation to stop that thing from happening in the first place, right? We think that that's the massive difference. But we also think, notice, that also those geeks are massively dangerous, because it's not just, because it's not just geeks, it's also like gun nuts in the United States who want to have their own gun, and they may not intend to shoot anyone, but we've seen enough guns that no one intended to shoot going off and accidentally killing people. We have no desire to continue doing that in our world. And second of all, because when people don't know what they're doing and they think they're super cool and super smart and they went to Harvard, but it doesn't matter because they still print something they don't know how it works, so they print a microwave that's faulty and someone ends up getting hurt, we think that there's reasons to have regulations, and we don't want to allow people to print things that aren't regulation because they think that they're so clever when they're really, really dumb teenagers, okay? So, great. What was the thing? Okay, last thing they wanted to talk about is this notion of like, oh, we'll have less innovation and that's so uncool. And here's where we exactly answer many of these things already in Schulman's point, right? One, because we say we're giving people access. By the way, if I want to give you a boy, I should probably do that at some point. If we want to give these people access to shops and to innovation, we're going to continue to allow them to do so in dedicated places that we can regulate, with things that limit stuff, so we don't have like 1,000,000 innovations, but only 1,000 innovation, and we're pretty cool with 1,000 innovation anyway, right? But second of all, we say that most of this innovation does tend to come from corporations who have a vested monetary interest in being able to innovate and continue to develop through this new technology that we're giving them. We think that large amounts of innovation throughout history have come through this, including like innovation in computers and technology and things along those lines, and we think that that's what's going to continue happening. But obviously, we say at the end of the day, you have to figure out what the balance is that we want to give, right? And we think that if you have slightly less innovation and slightly less personal ability, because I have to literally go down to the shop and I'm less likely to do that than I am to just print something in my home. But on the other hand, what we have is the massive potential for this to do insane amounts of damage. For people to print guns that I cannot detect, that I do not know have been printed, that I cannot regulate because too many people own 3D printers for me to check up on every single one of them, that cannot be detected by metal detector because they're made entirely of plastic and I will not be able to find them, with a vested interest of killing numbers of my citizens. That is the point at which we say, you know what, much like if we couldn't regulate your car, we wouldn't let you drive it, much like we won't let you buy enough explosives, buy enough gunpowder that might make an explosive, much like we wouldn't let you buy enough of a drug that if you melted it together would create meth. This is the point at which we say some of you may have reasonable and good interest in doing this. But if we think that you can cause enough damage, if we can give you enough of an alternative that's fine but not amazing and still gives you enough of an ability to live your life in the way you want, to innovate in the way that we want, that's when the balance is on our side. I beg you to propose.
Alright, so a few points of rebuttal, then we are going to get to our main extension, which is basically the death of intellectual property and why we think that it's a terrible idea to allow such a thing, and therefore we should not allow ownership of free printers for personal use. But first of all, a few points of rebuttal. So let's talk about the ease of use, which opening government are constantly getting attacked on by opening opposition. Well, look at it like that. They tell us it's very complicated. This is a design that you need to find or create, and then you need to print it, and it might be complicated because you need to learn the machine. Let's look at a printer. A printer is something that, well, when it came out, no one knew how to actually make a page suddenly have the Mona Lisa on it, except for Leonardo da Vinci. But now every single one of us can do that by just pressing Control-P. This is the exact same thing when it comes to just downloading models of the internet and being able to do the same thing. And let's look at medicines and even organs, which tell us, well, it's great. We can now basically print them. We say you can also print them at a hospital where it will be much better and less likely to kill you because you did something wrong, because they specialize in such a thing. Okay. More than that, they tell us, well, we can actually regulate what people are printing, and let's look at it like that. You can regulate the safety of the printer itself. What you can't regulate, like you can't regulate what a person is writing in his notebook at home or what he's eating at home. This is the same. You just cannot regulate the outcome of what he does with his machines. We just don't see it. Okay. Yes. Let's go straight to the point. Okay. So in our society, we appreciate new creations and new artistic and designful creations by giving them a trademark or a copyright, which basically means that because we believe that their hard work should not be in vain and that they actually did something in order to provide something new and creative to the world and to humanity, we should provide them with the fruit of their labor. We should give them protection for what they created, such as we have with movies and with basically everything. The bluntstone you're wearing, the shirts, those designs, everything we give it protection. Okay, so using 3D printers basically means that everyone can print that model of that bluntstone, of that shirt, of that very specially designed mug that I've created in the shape of Darth Vader. Everyone can now basically download it and print it, which means that everyone can print the statue that I've worked on for so long, for so much time. What does that mean is that the moment we allow 3D printers in the private homes of people and not in regulated stores, we just see that people will go and just print those things. Why? Because then they don't have to pay extra money because it's protected by copyright. Because then they only need to pay money for the material they use because someone has created a model of it on the internet that they've Control-P. Okay. No, thank you. So we cannot protect copyright if we have 3D printers because of the importance of copyright. And we think because of the importance of the work of people in order to create something new, we should ban use of 3D printers for personal use, which that principle already wins this debate. But if that's not enough for you, we also have a practical impact for that. What we also have is that many things such as ergonomic utilities or orthopedic utilities or prosthesers or even medicines in the future, which we already can print food. We don't see why we will not be able to print other chemicals into a form. We are saying people are going to print those things because it will be much, much cheaper to them than to actually pay for other things. We say the scientists and designers who design those things have used a lot of time and money. We say that specifically in the medical field for medical utilities, it's tens of years and lots of money in order to get to the market one specific thing. We're just saying they know that they are going to make that money back once it goes out to the market. But the moment that it goes out and someone can 3D print that medical utility, they will just not get that money back. They will be at total loss, which basically means that a lot of people will not want to take that risk of losing everything, and basically we will lose a lot of important things and we will lose a lot of advancement and development in the medical field and in other fields. Yes, opening.
Okay, so denying people from creating new designs for the slight chance of stealing an existing design is absurd. Not only 3D printers are far more expensive, will you also ban needles and clothes so people will not sue leak-offs of Gucci at their houses?
Okay, let's look at it like that. We'll look at it as the simplicity of it, and let's look also at the price. We are saying, yes, now 3D printers are pricey. Regular printers were also when they just came out. We are saying with development of technology, they're going to get cheaper and they're going to get more and more common in the common household. We are saying it is much cheaper and easier to print yourself a model of a shoe or something than it is to actually sew it yourself and get the leather to be in the exact shape when you have the computer basically doing it for you. We are saying it's much easier on our side. It hurts much more the intellectual property of the person, and because we proved you that basically with that we cannot continue and protect that thing which is so important, we're just begging you to propose this motion. Thank you very much.
It sounds a bit like a boring motion when you're talking about printing your own poker set or your own Darth Vader statue. But when you think about it, that the significance of 3D printers is the ability to customize, the shit that it's very important to people who need customized shit, like prothesas, like heart thingies that are made specially for you and that you need to keep evolving them and improving them, then you realize that the ability to control the designs at your own home is something that will improve the life quality of thousands and millions of people around the world, and that's what we are advocating on our side of the house. 2 points in my speech. First of all, I'm going to explain to you why the stagnation of technology that OO already touched affects those type of consumers who are dependent on the ability to customize their product. And second of all, I'm going to explain to you why on their own metric of legitimacy, OG doesn't meet their own bar. Before that, let's deal with CG with 2 points of rebuttal. First of all, they say that it's easy to create copyright violation. Then solution, write a patent on it. You have patents on algorithms, you have patents on designs, you have a shit ton of money invested in cybersecurity and in preventing other people from stealing your ideas, which means that companies that invest a lot of money in protecting that information will keep doing it. And if they have the ability to protect information in fields that are supposed to go out to the public, let's say like algorithms and technology and all that, then they have the ability to protect their own patents. Second of all, they're telling us that people will print shit that other people thought about it, then those other people will get mad and will not want to manufacture anymore. Now we're saying that the formulas, if you're talking about medicine or very specific stuff, are still secret and you have patent on them. We're saying that you need a very thorough understanding in order to print something and hope that it works. And we're thinking that the bulk, the ability to sell the designs themselves is a business models that companies are going to think it's worth exploring. Okay, I'm not going to sell you the pill. I'm going to sell you the formula. I'm going to sell you the recipe for the pill, and that is a viable business model that will still people will still be incentivized to make new shit. Now, let's talk about the stagnation of the technology and the effect of specific groups of consumers. Because OO already comes and tells us that you need to experiment a bit at home because you want to know what you want to do in order to make a better use. They finish their analysis by explaining to us that you can make better home-tailored clothes, better things that suit your preferences on a daily use. And OG comes and tells them, yeah, but you can still do it on a lab, on something that you go and maybe you sign up to and there's a line and somebody supervises you. Now, let's ask ourselves, how does supervision look like? First of all, if you want to create a company that will work under license and under supervision, you have to take into account two things. First of all, the increasing cost of the supervision itself, and second of all, the risk on developers and company owners in investing in that type of technology. When you're talking about the cost of the government mechanism, you have to take into account the cost that the salaries of the people and the training of the people that will supervise and will check those machines and see that they are up to standards, the development of new standards and the proliferation of those regulations all around, the cost of getting a license itself. That means that the price goes up, and it goes up to the consumer because no business is willing to take the loss on itself. They want to operate at a cost. Second of all, there is more risk of buying the printers themselves for new companies. That means the new barriers in getting into the market. Or already tell us there will be less companies. But to that we add less designers and less ability to interact between the designer and the user. And that is the great significance difference that those 3D printers bring to us, because the ability to rechange and reshape after you first printed the prothesa, to add another part that simulates a toe, to add another part that allows you to do movements with the pinky. It's something that changes via the measure of your hand, via the needs that you want to do, via your strengths, and all the things that you haven't thought about them before. That means that the ability to shape and reshape and better your life, it's significant for people who need those kind of stuff. Now, when you're talking about the ability to lower the price, that means a lower cost of buying new protheses, of buying equipment that will improve the life of people significantly. Not just, consumer stuff that it's fun to have, but basically things that you can't do without, like a hand. Second of all, we're talking about the ability to access those kind of services, to access those kind of products in places, in geographical areas that are less attractive to companies. That means that when the ability to sell products cheaper is handed to companies, there will be more companies who manufacture protheses in the peripheria. That will mean that more people can access that kind of technology and improve their life. Yes, Schulman.
Please note, while we provided feasible alternatives to both the use and the development of 3D printing going on, we have yet to hear how do you regulate a thing that you have no laws, standards, or even a language for?
First of all, you create laws and you create standards and you create a language. And you do it as you go. It's exactly like you did with the internet, because we give you the POI about a computer. And you say two things. You say, first of all, the computer has an evidence trail. First of all, that's not true at all, because you can buy an air-gapped computer and access the dark web and do all sorts of stuff that nobody has ever heard about. And second of all, you can predict the damage, which is untrue as well, because with a PC, with a smartphone, you can access a hospital and shut it down. You can erase all the debts of all the people in the world and create an economic chaos, and you can do it with languages that you develop at home. That means that the criteria that you have to explain to us why a PC is safe, but the printers aren't, is just not viable. Second of all, we don't think you met the other burden of showing us that the probable use of a 3D printer will be for the worst. Moreover than that, we do have alternatives for regulation. We can regulate the materials themselves. You can shoot a gun without gunpowder, and that's something that you can regulate, and that's something that you can track, which means that even on the off chance that some lunatic prints a gun, you can still check if he's buying the materials needed to operate that gun. You can still check what he's using to print. That means that under your own standards, you don't have a case. Thank you.
I'm going to first explain to you why all the other measures of the debate, which we didn't talk about, aren't so important, and we will refute each one of them, and then we'll talk about our point about copyrights, why it's the most important in this debate, why it should probably win. So let's start by talking about 3D printers in general. So what we got first now from CO are several things. Firstly, they talk to us much about the availability of all these things that you can go home and, I need another finger, I forgot it in the hospital, maybe I'll check it now. We don't think that's good in any way. We do not believe that anyone who's not a doctor should actually give you that. We don't understand why that's good in any way, and moreover, even if that's good, we don't understand why that's any different to you need to go to the pharmacy to get a pharmaceutical or something like that. You need something for that. We don't think that's so bad. We think we have pharmacies also when it's in regional places where there are villages, and we think that, yes, you can maybe get from your doctor some acceptance to have another finger, and then at the pharmacy they have a little 3D printer and they can print that for you. We don't understand why that's such a big deal. Now he talks to us about company supervision and why that's so bad. Because we have more people, more development, that means it heightens the price. We really don't understand how big a price that is. Moreover, maybe the state can just do it. We don't understand even if the company pays for that. We don't understand why that's so big a price. Pay attention, if you are a company and you produce something in more masses, it is just likely to cost just less. So this comes to our side. After that, they tell us, look, there are less printers. Here's the thing, when companies have printers, they have larger printers which print quite faster. That means, firstly, they are more efficient, but moreover, these are different models. We don't understand why that matters, even if a little bit less printers don't change the thing. After that, they talk to us about stylists. Here, we talked about that. If you talk about your stylist to your chair or something, yeah, you can. You don't have your stylist to your chair in your home anyway, and that's it. So, what do we get after that from OG? They tell us, look, OO tell us who actually uses these things, mostly tech geeks and others get in other. But we've given you quite a big incentive to actually have your 3D printer. We talk about it more. We think that means that many people will just have in this 3D printer even for our causes. Now they talk to us more about how we actually damage startups and everyday solutions. We say this. So many people have already talked and thought about everyday solutions with these printers. We just don't understand why there will be so many. And moreover, we believe that even if you think about everyday solution, you're just much more likely to be familiar with this. That means you know some company who does that, you can go to that company and say, yeah, I believe I want that model, etc., etc. So let's move to our case about copyrights, and then we'll weigh it in the end. So
Before that, if you want.
no. Firstly, what we got on property to that is, look, here we have patents. Yeah, that's the thing exactly. We do have copyright, we do have things like patents on films. Every one of you probably saw illegal films. Why did he do that? Not because you're immoral people, but because it's free and you can do that. We believe that everyone can also just download this medicine from a site and just produce it. That means that is just huge. Now they tell us, but that's a lot of money to buy a 3D printer. Firstly, we just don't understand why it's so much money, but moreover, maybe it's much more expensive to buy something against cancer that costs thousands of dollars. Now, here's the thing. They will maybe tell you that's good that you can have this cure for cancer if you can't afford it otherwise. We say several things to that. Firstly, we just don't believe that in most places this is the case. You have healthcare, you have health insurance, you have Medicare, etc., etc. But moreover, we say this. Even if a little bit less people will actually get the medicine, in the long term that's much better. Because we believe there will be no development of any medicine in the case of oppositions. Because there is no incentive to actually work for years and years with professors and doctors all around the world, invest your money in something you aren't sure will break anything if you don't know what you will get for that. The company invests, and most of the money invested in these things are from private company, and it is invested because they know that they will get something for that in the future. Now we tell you even more. After 15 years, these medicines become generic, and this is important because in the end, all the people will get on their side. In the short term, maybe a little bit more people will get medicine. But on the long term, no new medicine can be created in any way. And this is hugely important. Now, they tell us more about, but the formula will be unknown. We think that's bullshit for several reasons. Firstly, just how patents work. All the patents are public. I'm sorry. That's how it works. Secondly, we say that it's illegal to do that. You need to show the ingredients on your tablets. Thirdly, we say that's how the FDA calls it. If you don't want the FDA to check your medicines and check if they're okay through experience and tests, that's very problematic. The FDA checks that if you have so many people working on that project, we don't understand how anyone from them cannot be leaking. Now understanding the huge money that he can get from it. Because understand that. If he sends that and sells that one rogue FDA employee to someone, then he's on a bet. Then he can sell it for tens of thousands for one site that sells this in $2 for everyone, but gets still the price. Before I move on, I will get second.
You want on your side of the house to jack the prices of people with disabilities, to make them unable to access the things they need for the potential risk of maybe someday someone printing a gun.
Yeah, that's called economy, that's called taxes, that's called everything we do in general. We think that we help as many people in the long term. Yeah, I care more about the people with disabilities 15 years from now until thousands of years from now than the people with disabilities in the next 15 years. And no, that's no potential. When we talk about throughout history, that actually exploring medicine is the way to get more pharmaceuticals. You can't just wait and get more pharmaceuticals. If we want to cure cancer in any way, in some cancer, we need to experiment for it. No incentive on their side. This is critical. Let's go now to weigh between the things, because you may think maybe there are cons or pros to 3D printing after all. But we say this. We don't know how many people exactly will misuse. We don't know someday these things will be actually able to be regulated. That on our side they can't be. We don't regulate. We can't regulate medicine like we can regulate this movie. Now, we say even more, just the numbers game. 30,000 people were homicided in the USA. But the number of people who have cancer in the USA are millions of people. These are the millions that on the long term, we actually give them their life. I call you to propose.
So before I delve way deeper into what happened in this debate, let's start by the following. On the best case that we get from government, we have those very rare cases of people printing guns that won't print guns, they will get weapons in other ways. This is the best scenario that we get from government. Other also the house. We oppose that on two levels. A, we say that it just can happen on many other things, like computers that we raise in a priority at the very beginning, and they fail to tell us why the logic doesn't fall under everything else in the status quo. But secondly, and also importantly, for those few people that will get a weapon not through 3D printing, but through buying a balloon and filling it with explosive, which we see happen today in Israel, we get people with disabilities that aren't able to get access into things that can actually improve their life tremendously. And this is the extension that we get from us. I'm going to do two main things. A, I'm going to explain to you why specifically OG case falls into the status quo, being that they just do not prove to us that this is a legitimate act upon them. And secondly, why we actually block consumers from achieving this kind of improvement to their life that is so much important for them, and they actually have no alternative. Before that, 2 points of rebuttal. A, we get the response to our extension telling us the following. We don't want people printing organs at home. We would much prefer doing it in a hospital. So we agree. We agree on a lot of levels. This is not an analysis. An analysis is the following. We say that when you can print at home and use the 3D printer for personal use, you can actually customize in a much higher level. Meaning when you go and buy something, a leg from plastic, from a company, you actually can improve it in order to be custom for you. You actually can change things. You can create a cup that is stable for you. If you have Parkinson and you keep moving your hands all the time, you can create small things that create huge change in your life. And it's something that is unique to 3D printing. So obviously you will go get the organ from doctor, and you also have to analyze why it will be so much more expensive to you to get that. But also some of the things that you can do at home are extremely important for your improvement. Second point of rebuttal is specifically on most of the extension that we get from the closing government. And we think this extension is in much range out of this debate. Why is that? 3 reasons. A, we just do not understand how 3D printing is unique in any way in this debate. If they care about infringement of copyright, obviously AliExpress and a lot of other ways companies are doing an excellent job at infringing on copyright without 3D printing. So this is just not this debate. This is a debate on a different level, talking about copyright, which is just nothing to do with 3D printers. More than that, we already say that we have other options to regulate that using patents. Maybe if you want to earn money with your blueprints, you can put commercials in your blueprints and things like that. You can earn money in other ways. You can sue other companies if you have a patent and they're actually infringing on the patents. And more than that, even if all of this extension standards debate, we just do not understand why copyrights are in any kind of way and a reason for us to ban technology from personal use. So even if it all stands, it is just not a rationale that stands in this debate at the end. Let's understand about the legitimacy, because a lot of OG case says the following. They tell us we can create a lot of dangerous things using this technology, therefore we shouldn't allow people to use it. We have an infinite range of technology. We think that all comes in and talks a little bit about the fact that it is a complicated way of use, but we don't think this is actually what makes this argument fall. The thing is, what we talk about computers and other things that they status quo is exactly what makes it fall, because they tell us the damage that you can create with explosives can cause people die, can do huge harm. We say that using hacking, you can actually hack an hospital and make people die by the fact that they cannot get treatment. Meaning that we have a lot of things that you can make explosive with, and it's just not a reason to ban it. More than that, the fact that you can't regulate it, you don't have to wait to do so, already falls under the status quo, because they say it is impossible to know if something is explosive, something bad. If it can shoot a person, if it can explode, you can tell that someone shouldn't have it, and this goes against just the fact that you need a license for a gun, so already the status quo is enough to deal with the situation. So at the end, I think the strongest case, if you get for OG, just falls under the fact that we just have ways in the status quo to regulate it, and even if we don't, it is just not reason enough, because they need to ban computers, knives, cameras, and so many other things just to go through the logic. Let's understand our second one. I'll take it about the fact what actually happens in this debate, and the fact that we actually block consumers from a market that can actually improve their lives. So OO comes and tells you the following. They tell you two things. A, we want people using this technology for personal use in order to create innovation. Secondly, they tell you we want companies to have a market in order to produce this kind of printers. OG comes and tells them, yes, but we have other alternatives. We have hospitals actually giving them those organs. We have other ways in order to achieve customization. And we are the ones telling you exactly what goes from the fact that we have those companies producing less printers into the fact that people aren't able to access those great innovations that exist. How does that go? We tell you the following. The reason that the prices of the printers go up is quite simple. It's the fact that the market shrinks tremendously when you don't have personal use. But secondly, we tell you the fact that if you want to improve technology, and this is the kind of thing, if you want to print better organs, if you want to customize it better, it is quite an expensive thing for a company producing printers to improve the printers enough to allow technology. Meaning that even if under OG worlds we have companies able, and we have scientists and biologists able to create organs, they need the right printers to do so. They aren't able to actually get to those printers when the companies producing them find it so incredibly expensive opening.
Computers develop slowly, their boundaries broadened, as well as the regulations and the precautions against them. We have no problem with bounded 3D printers, as we explicitly told you. Those unbounded 3D printers are the problem.
We don't understand the process of so fast. We see that computers right now are evolving very quickly, and we don't have the ability to know every single thing that you can do with computers. It is exactly the same thing with 3D printers, and they aren't able to actually create the distinction. Let's go further into analysis. So what we say is simply, the prices of creating those printers go up, meaning that the companies buying the printers and wanting to create new technologies that are available for consumers have to raise the price as well. And this is huge damage for people actually needing those prostheses, needing those organs to improve their life. What does that mean? It means that they cannot buy those products. Even if they exist, we have less companies able to buy the printers in order to create them. We don't have printers good enough that can actually have this technology, and we have less people getting those products. We say that at the end, the impact that we give you in this debate is the larger that you get. We say that people aren't able to get technologies that can change their life tremendously, that it is a change from being at home and being able to go outside. It is a change from being able to eat safely and not even being able to do so at all. Because of all this reason, we call it here first.